Do you need a Diet Coke versus a cup of coffee?
No,
Sometimes
never.
you'll just, yeah, sometimes Diet Coke
No,
will do the trick.
no. Diet Coke is an afternoon drink. It is not a morning drink. You do not go to the refrigerator first thing in the morning and get a Diet Coke. You just don't do that.
Sometimes you do.
You're doing it wrong.
I'm just saying, sometimes in the morning when I'm going to the golf course and getting ready to play, that I don't want a hot drink,
You're doing
especially
it
in the
wrong.
summer.
That's what iced coffee is for.
I get what you're saying, but there's just something crisp. Like,
I'm
I know every soda does that, but
we
I don't
done.
know.
We can agree
I
to
like
agree.
regular, I like regular Coke too.
Yes.
I mean,
I used to
I'm not a
love.
diet guy by any means, but some Diet Coke for some reason just is a pick me
Listen,
up.
everybody loves the taste of aspartame in the morning. It's fine. Can't
Yeah.
I used to love regular Coke, but I can't drink it anymore. It's too sweet. Also, thank you, diabetes. I can't have it without insulin. So I'm definitely not taking insulin first thing in the morning for a regular Coke. I will drink coffee.
Touche. Touche.
Don't cut that. That is a great intro right there.
I'm not cutting any of that.
For
I am a coffee drinker. I will drink coffee pretty much every morning, but sometimes. But I agree, it's more of an afternoon, 2 or 3 o'clock.
yeah, yeah. Come on.
I would agree there. But anyways, so I know I texted you, see what you wanted to talk about. We were kind of on
Yes.
the same page, like why go somewhere else other than the very beginning. So I'm gonna let you go first, only because
Okay.
sometimes when you're telling your thing, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that now. But
Oh, good. So I get to
um,
be the one who has memory
no,
holes.
I'll
And
interject. I'm not shy. I'm
I
just
would just like to start with a disclaimer that recollections may vary because I've been taking Prograf for many years, and we all know what Prograf and all of these other drugs do to your memory. And if you don't, you're going to find out one day.
oh, you will find out. And I think it's me, and then you always want to blame something. Oh, it's got to be the medication.
We're
No,
going to go with
maybe it's
that.
just me. And then when I hear like you just saying like Prograf does that, good to know.
Prograf
Because I
does,
don't feel
well,
like
I
I
don't
should be
know.
that
Recollections
forgetful
may
at
vary. I
37.
think it does. I think Prograf does that. I feel like that's what we were told in the beginning. But anyway,
Yeah.
starting at the very beginning.
You were told when you were told, hey, Katie, time is now. You need to get evaluated for a lung transplant. Here's where we
Um,
think you should go.
yeah.
Start. Boom.
So there's a little bit of history there too. Um, I think I mentioned in our first episode. It's a weird way to reference that, but there you go. If you didn't watch the first episode, go back. I think I said in the first episode that I had been I'd been sick for about a year and a half on and off because I got the swine flu. And I had actually been going to Emory University Hospital, and I didn't like the way that they were handling things. And so I left Emory University Hospital and went back to seeing a doctor that I'd had as a teenager. And he had moved away from practicing in CF medicine, but he was still seeing cystic fibrosis patients in his asthma and allergy clinic. He's amazing, amazing doctor. And I think if I hadn't made the switch, I would have been a lot more reluctant to have the conversation, but I really trusted him. Obviously, if I left a huge university research hospital to
Right.
go I mean, basically to just a little smaller community type hospital, it's because that's where he put his patients when they needed to be hospitalized. But I really trusted him and I trusted his advice. And so I think I'd been back with him for about a year. And I actually came to Mayo with a PICC line because I was still getting I was needing antibiotics. I mean, really and truly every 6 weeks. So I was in the hospital for a couple of days, and then I would be able to get out and and do IV antibiotics at home. And I was still trying to work. I was working in a middle school, and it was just getting to the point where I was just completely exhausted all the time. And I don't remember exactly when it happened, but I do remember him sitting me down and saying, basically, I can keep patching you up, but I'm not sure how long I can. That was kind of the wake up call. So he didn't actually say the words, it's time to consider a transplant, because he knew
Mhm.
that I was really hesitant to consider that at the time. But I distinctly remember him saying, I can keep patching you up, but I'm just not sure how long I can keep doing that. And so that for me was the wake up call that it was really time to think about it. And if I remember correctly, he kind of let us come to him with that discussion. And, when you go through all of that, you don't get to pick your center. Your insurance company dictates where you can go. But I didn't know that at the time, and he was sending all of his patients over to University of Alabama at Birmingham because he had a very good friend that was a doctor there that he trusted that ran their transplant program. So I was like, UAV is where we're going to go. We're going to do the well, that's not how it happened, obviously. Anyhow, so when the insurance company came back with their centers that they considered to be centers of excellence that they would work with, the options were Emory, Vanderbilt, and Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. And I was like, I'm not going to Emory. They had shut down their program not too long before that, and they had just reopened it. I had just left Emory shortly before that. No shade on Emory. I know there are going to be people that are watching this that may be going to Emory. It's totally different now than it was when I was there. But I was so nervous about the whole scenario that I just wasn't comfortable with a program that had shut down and then reopened. And Vanderbilt in Tennessee, I didn't know anybody in Tennessee. And so there were two conversations that we had with other people who had no idea what the insurance company had said. And my mom and my dad and Dustin and myself really felt like that was God telling us that we should go to Mayo.
Mhm.
So my granddad is a pharmacist here in Jacksonville, or he was. He passed away a couple years ago. But at the time, he had been invited to the grand opening of the new building, out at the campus where it is now, and he had no idea. And he was like, "Oh, he called us for some reason. I was in the hospital. He called us for some reason, probably just to check in." And he had said to my mom, he was like, "Oh yeah, we just got back from the new Mayo Clinic building in Jacksonville." And she was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So I'm
Hmm.
listening to the conversation. And then maybe a day or so later, and again, recollections may vary. It's been a long time. It's been about 15 years. Um, a friend of mine from church called to check in, and she said, I just got back from the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. And I was like, these conversations are not coincidental at all. And so that is how we decided to go to Mayo. And I'm originally from north of Atlanta. It was not convenient. It was a very long way.
Mhm.
So, I don't know, because you came in a little later than I did, and I don't know how they do it now. But when I went through the consultation, they gave you like an average wait time.
Yeah, no. They didn't do that. Well, no.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think they do that anymore.
I
So
mean, they might have average of, like, 6 months to a year, but,
I
again, once you learn about your lung allocation score,
right.
which is also not
Wait,
really any kind of indication of when you're gonna get
right.
transplanted.
Just going through the consult. We had sent all my records from Atlanta down to Mayo. They brought us down for the consultation. We didn't know what that meant. We did not
Right.
realize that it was just us coming to meet the team for them to talk to us, and then you go through the evaluation process. So we really went in kind of blind, honestly, which in a way I think it was good, because I think if I'd known everything from the beginning, I might have chickened out. But when I came, I wasn't using oxygen at all. And Dr. Keller took one look at me, and that changed there and then on that day. And so that was probably in September of 2010. And we came back shortly after for all the testing. It was, probably 6 weeks, 2 months later. We stayed down here, went through all the testing, still thinking, okay, I'm going to get listed. It's going to be like 7 or 8 months. We'll be able to go back home. And I remember getting listed on November 11th, and we chose to go ahead and move in December. So I moved to Jacksonville in December of 2010.
Okay.
Rented a condo from somebody else that had her husband had a liver transplant. They bought a couple of condos and they rented those out to transplant patients. There's an entire network
Mhm.
of people here that do that that we didn't even know about. So we thought we were
Right.
coming in kind of alone. I have family here. My cousins are here. My grandparents were here at the time. Again, they've both since passed. My grandmother is still living. She's still here and she's amazing. She helped take care of me after my transplant. But anyway, so we kind of found a network of people when we got here. We didn't know that they were here. We didn't know that all of this existed. So we're coming in and we have this kind of like, I won't say rose colored glasses because none of it really feels that way, but
Mhm.
definitely an idealistic scenario of how this is going to play out. And it didn't play out that way. Um, we passed the
Does it
seven
ever?
we passed the 7 month mark, and my parents, again, this was all totally a God thing. My parents were able to buy a condo that had been in foreclosure. And so I left the rental and I moved into the condo. And Dustin was still living in Atlanta. He was going to work Monday through Friday. He was driving down to Jacksonville on Friday and going home on Sunday. It was
Mhm.
just it was all really, really hard. Um, so, you do the rehab thing. That's how we met. I did the support groups for a little while, but once I started meeting friends through cardiopulmonary rehab and we started hanging out outside of it, I didn't really feel like the support group was quite as necessary. And I was really grateful for it in the beginning because that is how I got connected to people.
Yeah.
So really, once I started using oxygen and going to cardiopulmonary rehab, I got better. For a little while, I got better.
Okay.
And as you said, with your lung allocation score, it doesn't necessarily give you any indication of when you'll get transplanted.
Do you
And
remember what your LAS score was?
I don't, and I never really paid attention to it for a couple of reasons. One, I have some weird antibodies that they
Mhm.
were worried about being able to match. And
Right.
two, I'm 4 feet 10 inches tall.
Right. So you were
So,
probably looking towards more pediatric
but
lungs.
I was already 30, and so that
Mhm.
wasn't even a possibility. And so we just kind of knew it by that point. After about a year, the conversations were very frank, and not in so much as like a
Like, when you say
hopeless.
conversations were frank, do you mean, like, within your own family, within your own circle,
Um,
or do you mean with the doctors?
More with the doctors, and it was never a hopeless conversation. There was never a moment. They were always very hopeful and very encouraging, but they were also very honest about
I would agree with
si-
that.
your size is going to be a problem. Not a problem. Your size is going to be an issue. I don't want to put words in their mouths because
Yeah,
they
it's not
were.
really yeah, I would say it's gonna be an obstacle for
It's
sure.
going to be, yeah, an obstacle is a good way to describe it, but they were never discouraging. There was always an air of, we believe this will happen. We just don't know
Yeah.
when. So
Yeah, and I think not to cut you off, but just to
no,
add in
please.
there, like, they always really did a good job of telling you, "We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't think,"
Yes, I completely
without
agree with that.
saying, "Hey, I'm gonna guarantee you we're gonna find you lungs and you're gonna live 20 more," like, they never sold you on anything. Like, I was
No,
never personally, I was never sold on any kinda lifestyle post-transplant,
no.
or
So didn't ask that question. So,
I didn't either. This is social media.
ah,
So I remember reading that and thinking to myself, like, "You're just throwing gasoline on your anxiety fire." Like,
oh, for
what
sure.
like,
For sure.
there are things there are things in life you can control,
You
and then
can't
there are
control that.
things that you will drive yourself crazy
Yeah.
trying to control.
Yeah, and there were a
Um,
lot of things that I became obsessive about like that. A lot of things. It was more
but
like
it's hard not to. I mean, we're only human, and we only know what we wake up every day, and it's like, "Oh, man, is that phone gonna ring?" And I used to get mad when my phone would ring and it wasn't mail, like,
I know.
"Don't call and check on me."
Yeah,
Seriously.
or they would call and they'd be like, "Hey, we need to schedule an appointment." And I'm like, "But that's not the call that I wanted."
How
But
about when they would call you on holidays
yeah.
to wish you a Merry Christmas or wish you a Happy
Yeah,
Thanksgiving? And
I
I
appreciate
remember
it,
I
but
politely said, "Please, until I'm transplanted, don't do that again." Like, you just can't do that to somebody. Maybe some people are like, "Oh, it's just sweet." Like,
yeah. And I
there's a lot of
had
anxiety that comes with waiting for a
there
life-saving
was so
call.
much anxiety. And I think too, because when you're waiting for transplant, they are tracking everything so closely and you learn how to do it. So you learn like if I look at my lab report, kind of know how to read it, but I don't really. And I kind of know how to read my PFT report, but I don't really. And so I
Mhm,
became obsessive about that kind of stuff to the point where it was like I knew enough to be dangerous to myself, just like
100%.
emotionally. And so, but again, I waited 3.5 years, and a lot of it had to do with just my size. And so
Mhm.
I really appreciated so much how encouraging and positive, but also honest the transplant team was. I agree with you. I was never sold a lifestyle. They were very upfront and honest about you're trading one disease for another. Because when you're waiting, everything is all just theoretical. Like in my mind, I know things are going to change. In my mind, I know this life is going to feel different. In my mind, I can sort of think about what it might be like. But until it happens, and once it happens so quickly. And I won't like I'm not going to talk about all 3.5 years, but I did cardiopulmonary rehab 3 times a week, every week for 3.5 years. And honestly, I was in pretty good shape considering how sick I was. And I do credit the team at Mayo, the cardiopulmonary rehab team at Mayo, for me being able to wait as long as I did because they were just incredible. And and that was fun. That was a fun, like I
They
enjoyed
made it very
going
fun.
to
For
rehab.
dealing with people who are in end-stage pulmonary fibrosis or pulmonary disease, um, they were very uplifting.
They
If they
were.
had a bad day, you never knew.
No.
Um, they were very empathetic. They were
Yes.
very like, they did a very good job of handling what we would consider. I mean, I had the nurses and doctors called on me a few times where you get pulled into that side room and they're
Yeah.
like, "All right," and then you come out and you're might be on 5, 2, but you're on more oxygen usually when you come out of that room.
Yeah, you are.
Um,
But
because
all
you're pulled off the machines because your sats aren't maintaining.
I know.
And for those of you listening, your sats, at least at least where we come from, your sats had to maintain above 90,
Yeah.
or you would have to stop, take a break, wait for your numbers to come back up,
And then keep going.
or yeah, and then you'd get back on. And if it was just, they did such a good job monitoring you that
They
they
did.
knew if you were having an off day, or
Yeah.
maybe you decided to, how many times I've stuffed my face with fast food right before I got there? Like, just dumb things, but I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever. At that time, any of the doctors, anybody would have said, when you're hungry, eat, because
Yeah. You
it
burn
wasn't
so many
always
calories just trying to breathe, and you've gotta have extra weight because you lose so much in the beginning, and
so
you like, your
fast.
yeah, your body needs oxygen, you need rest, and you need to eat, and it felt like that was my job for 3.5 years. Gaining weight, because I have cystic fibrosis, I did pulmonary treatments 4 times a day, every day for
And what were
three
some
and a
of
half
those
years.
What were some of those? Because
So
not everybody that's listening
no, it's
even knows
right.
what cystic fibrosis is or understands, like, why do so many people die from the disease,
Yeah.
you know?
So with cystic fibrosis, you don't just have lung damage. Our I don't I don't want to explain the medical terminology because I don't want to get it wrong.
No,
But
that's fine.
basically,
Just in layman's terms,
well, whatever, like when you get sick and you have all that mucus and junk in your chest, you have the ability to cough it out and get it out. Well, when you have cystic fibrosis, you can't do that. And so that mucus just gets in there and it gets really, really sticky. And the bacteria just grows. And so the breathing treatments were treatments to open the airways,
Mhm,
and then some of them were to help flush all the junk out,
mhm,
and then others were inhaled antibiotics to try to kill the bacteria that was in there as best it could. And so when you're that sick, you have to do it multiple times a day. It was every 4 hours while I was awake. It consumed my whole life. So between
yeah.
and then you have the vest that you put on and it's got the air
The
pump and it shakes
shake
it out.
just oh,
Yes.
yeah.
I still have that. I did keep it. So
Man, you
anyway,
should
that's
just
what I
try
was
to do the entire podcast with that thing on.
no, thank you. I don't think I could do it now. Once upon a time I absolutely could have. I was great at
Did
having
you sleep with
conversation.
did you have weighted blankets and all that?
I didn't have weighted blankets back then.
Yeah, I had weighted blankets when I was we tried it, and I was
I'm
like,
not
with
sure.
magnets and all that stuff to try to figure out, like, if that would help, but
No, I didn't do any of
anyways.
that. So anyway, I did that's what I did for 3 years. I ate to gain weight.
Yeah,
I um I was on oxygen because you've got to have enough oxygen in your muscles. Like if your body doesn't have enough oxygen coursing through your
right.
bloodstream, it destroys everything. It's not just your lungs, it's everything.
Every
And then
organ.
I did rehab 3 times a week for 3.5 years. And in January of 2014, we got a phone call, and I want to say it was New Year's Day, and it was the dry run call. But
Mm,
ours never got to the point where we actually went to the hospital. It was just, hey, we think we have a set of lungs for you. Don't eat anything. We'll call you back. And it wasn't very long after that that they called and said, "Hey, it's a no go." And really, from that point forward, I think I saw the doctors a couple of weeks after, and they were like, "How are you feeling?" And I was like, "I'm ready anytime."
yeah.
Anytime, I'm ready. And they were
Well,
like, "You're right in that."
I had already come and
Oh, yeah. Well, and
like,
I was
long
really the
gone.
last one. I was the last one. I was the last one of our group to get transplanted. I waited the longest. Everybody else had come and gone.
Yeah,
And my story is not typical, which is kind of why I hesitate to tell it too often to people who are just at the beginning point of transplant, because I don't ever want to scare anybody and them hear my story and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to wait so much longer."
yeah. No,
My
it's
story's
definitely
not
not
typical.
like that. You can't take waiting 3.5 hearing, "Well, she waited 3.5 years,"
Yeah, don't.
there's a chance that well, yeah, of course, there's a chance you could, but
Yes,
you also had a lot of different
I
circumstances
did.
why lungs weren't available to you.
I did. And I don't know if the antibody thing was something they found out after transplant or before. I don't remember. I just remember hearing that after my transplant. And again, who knows what was
Mhm.
actually said. Um, but I did, after my transplant, I did get tested for CMV forever. I want to say it was like a couple of years
Now
after transplant.
were you CMV positive before?
I don't think I was.
Was your donor?
Yes.
That's why.
There were a couple of things that I didn't have that most people have. There were a couple of antibodies that for however I made it 33 years
I didn't
without,
have it either.
which is interesting because it kind of, they kind of made it sound like that was really unusual, which again,
They say, like,
I
80% of people
yeah,
have carry the virus. Well, it's not really a virus, but carry that
yeah,
trait, like,
and I didn't
whatever you
have
wanna
it.
call it.
So again,
Yeah.
I don't remember now if that was something they found out before or after,
It's
but they
after, I think,
okay. So
because they wanna see how I think, don't quote me, but I think
I
it's
know, right?
after to see how everything just kind of like sets in place
Yeah.
and see what your body does with everything, like, before
Yeah.
they start treating something that they don't need to treat. But yeah,
Yeah.
I remember them telling me, like, basically, so both neither one of my donors was CMV positive either, which is
Interesting.
right. When you hear the statistic, like 80% of
You
people
would think
have it.
that's everybody.
I mean, that's pretty close.
So after that point, I didn't start to lose hope, but I remember beginning to feel just really tired. Everything was just such a fight all the time. And Dr. Malaya, I believe it was, asked me when I wanted to have a transplant. And I said March 11th. And he was like, that is very specific. How did you come up with that day? And I said, well, I got listed on November 11th of 2010, and March 11th of 2014 would be 40 months. And I was like, God works in 40s. And so he was like, well, all right. And March the 8th, the phone rang and it was the call. And really, from that point forward, everything happens so quickly. So it feels like a long time, but when you think back on it, it's hours. And so, you go to the emergency room and they get you all ready. They take you up to your room. And my dad was out of the country. My cousins
Oh,
and
I
my
remember that.
brother
Yep.
were in Atlanta. And my dad, I don't even know. He'd have to tell the story because I honestly don't remember. But he made it back to Jacksonville as my cousins were coming by the Jacksonville airport. So they picked him up. They love to tell this story. I should record them telling it in their own words.
You should.
But basically the
Or we'll
airport
have them
security was
on.
like, you gotta move. You can't park here. And my cousins were like, no, our uncle's coming. We have to wait for him. We've got to get to Mayo. And they all got there right before they took me back for anesthesia. So I got to see everybody before my transplant, but it was like in the nick of time kind of deal.
So
And
crazy.
so
I
crazy.
have a similar my first one was similar in the sense of traveling for people lined up, but continue.
It's just amazing how that all works out exactly as it's supposed to. And
Just like the entire everybody on the transplant team, from social workers to doctors to
yeah,
nurses to surgical ICU nurses, they all tell you the same thing. When it's going to
yeah,
happen, it
everything
not
just
only is going
lines
to
up.
happen, it's going to be perfect.
Hmm. And,
And it's
you
just
know,
wild how every single time, well, most times
yes,
when it's a success, it's a
it's,
success.
yeah. And, they're so good at what they do that,
Yeah.
again, there was never a moment that they were worried about it. And so that was
Nope.
just very comforting as a patient for them to be like, we do this all the time. We got this. It's going to be, we know what we're doing.
For
And
me,
so,
Mayo Clinic was great at that.
yes.
I never felt, I mean, to this day, I don't ever go to Mayo Clinic and feel like I'm a patient. I really don't. I've never
I don't
sat in
think I
a
do
I've never
either.
sat in anybody's office. I've never sat in with any kind of provider and felt like, God, I felt rushed out of there, like they had to
Oh,
get to
no,
somebody else.
never.
Now, if you're in there BSing,
Well, yes, they
like
do
I
have other
do,
patients to get to.
absolutely. And you know me, I like to talk. God, Dr. Erasmus and I used to get talking about golf and I'm like,
Well, but I mean,
I'm
that's a
literally
great,
I'm following him back to like their little
yeah.
doctor
He's like,
area
look, I gotta go.
talking. Just
I
he's like,
gotta
all
go.
right, I gotta go.
Yeah. Well, that's what's so, I think one of the things that is so great about the transplant team, and I don't have any experience at any other hospitals with transplant, only
Right, neither do
Mayo.
I.
But when you are in a hospital or in a program for that kind of specialty, I never felt like they were saying, you have to do this or else. I always felt like I had a choice. I
Hmm.
was going to choose what they were proposing. I uprooted my entire life to be there, but it didn't ever feel like I was being strong armed or manipulated. And I have been in medical situations where it did feel like that, not at Mayo. And they just, it's such a crazy experience anyway, and it was very obvious that they were confident in what they do. They have a great program, and I never once felt like we made the wrong choice. So anyway,
Yeah,
after my
that's
transplant, I don't remember much, and I have asked my family not to tell me many
oh,
times.
really?
I haven't looked at pictures. I haven't um we haven't talked about it. And I've always said I don't want to know what those first few days were like if I ever have to do it again. So,
Yeah.
um really once I got past that initial point and I was able to get up and move and the chest tubes came out and the pain was under control a little bit better, it wasn't awful. There were some bumps and some bruises in the post part in those
But
initial few weeks, but
and the other thing is back to, our first episode, we don't know any other way.
don't.
I mean, so like, when you look past, some people say like, man, your pain tolerance is high, and I'm like, well, I know, like I see the end game. I see the end result. So
Yeah,
I know that, okay, let's logically think about this. You just had your entire sternum cracked open.
you did. I didn't.
Well, you still went through a
Oh yeah,
traumatic surgery. I
it
mean,
was painful.
don't discount, and you had a
No.
different kind of pain because yours were, your incisions are cut in your back.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Yeah,
But
and I mean, I don't know that kind of pain. And then when
well,
they cut you through your chest, they cut all your nerves. So like, I'm
yeah,
still numb through here.
really.
Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, for me, I remember the pain being bad, and I remember taking pain medication, but I did never feel like the pain was just excruciating to the point where it was unbearable. What was unbearable for me is that all the medications made me so sick. I threw up like multiple times a day for a couple of months.
Did you ever find
And
out what the medication was that was really doing it?
I think the conclusion really was the antifungal and the antiviral on top of everything else. Just it my stomach just couldn't tolerate it, but you have to take it. And so um it was a lot of like I ended up in the hospital once with an idiopathic fever, probably from being dehydrated, but they were never
Right.
able to pinpoint a cause. Dr. Keller was wonderful. He played around with my medications. He actually put me on on Imuran because I couldn't handle the Cellcept, and I did great on Imuran for like 8 years. But he was like, I've adjusted all the medication I can adjust. I can't take you off anything else
Yeah, not
safely."
yet.
And so Dr. Erasmus was like, "Hey, well, there's this guy in neurosurgery here that does acupuncture. Are you interested?" And I was like, "I will do anything."
Yeah.
And it was great. I talked about it in our last episode too. That was one of those things. If somebody had said, "You're going to have acupuncture to cure your nausea after a transplant," I would have been like, "I'm not. I'm really not." But, it just, I appreciated that I never felt written off in that whole process. They were so diligent and they listened. I never felt like they were like, "It's in your head," or "This is completely normal. You just have to suffer through it." I do remember asking Dr. Alvarez when I hit that 3-month mark. I was like, "Can I get a dog? I really want a dog." And he goes, "You might as well just get a pet alligator." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And that was his very Dr. Alvarez way of saying it's not a good idea.
Yeah, like, they know that they can't control us. Like, you
No,
can't it's not like we, like, signed a contract that says, "Now
no.
you follow everything we say." However, there is a sense of they'll hold you they'll hold you accountable if you don't listen to the rules. I mean, there are
Well,
rules for
yeah.
sure.
And there's
And if you don't
always a
listen to the
lot of
rules, you definitely are
not a good candidate.
exactly, because if you can't take care of something that's as simple as taking care of yourself,
Yeah.
then what are you gonna do when you're given your organ, and you now are responsible for a very tight medical regimen. And
Yeah.
you got all these things. I'm just going to use this as an example, but it's like, are you mature enough to handle this? Like,
Yeah. Well, I think
are
that's
you
a
going
good
to
way
take
to put
care
it.
of the gift that you're about to receive? Because it comes
It
with it.
is.
See, and that's the other thing that we'll talk about at a different time. But the heaviness, sometimes, the
Yep.
heaviness that comes with that call for transplant is something, until you experience it, we all know somebody has to pass
Hmm.
in order for somebody to get a lung transplant. It's just the way it is.
Well,
It's
and
the
I
same
think
thing with, go ahead.
I kind of look at it through a different lens. I think when you say somebody has to pass, it almost feels like someone is electing to do that in our favor. But I don't remember who said it to me, but I was struggling with that. And I was like, I just the weight of this is so heavy. And it was more a conversation of this has happened to this family and they're getting the opportunity to make this mean
Yeah.
something different for them, but it's still heavy because now there is that responsibility of this family made a choice, and they made a choice when their family member couldn't, or their family member chose that and they honored it. And the weight is the same. We are
Yeah.
not responsible for that person's legacy by any means, but we do have a responsibility to honor a choice that was made for someone that they will never ever know in a lot of cases.
People still have to check that box.
They
And when you
do.
check, when you check that box to become an organ donor, like, that's a big deal. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. I mean, you can
Yeah,
just say, well, and most people who don't think twice about it, their reasoning is, well, what am I going to do with them when I die?
it's true.
They're just going to suck them out of you when they embalm you. And it's like, that's kind of gross, but I get it. And if you're not an organ donor, I don't
At
hate you.
all respect, no shade on anybody who chooses not to be. It's a big decision, but it is a responsibility. And that conversation is started from the very beginning. Like when you go for your consultation, they don't hide anything.
No.
They're really upfront about, the weight of the decision that you're making, the weight of the decision that the organ donors family and the organ donors and their families are making.
Yeah, because not every organ donor is an organ donor when they die.
Yeah,
And we'll dive into that more because that's how my life was saved the first time.
yeah.
But
Oh,
anyways, we'll
that's
get
a
into that.
wild story. That's a really wild story.
Yeah,
So
my
anyway,
transplant story is pretty wild.
yes, it is. And here we are 11 and a half years later for me.
Yeah,
And I'm doing great. And I would do it again if I had to, but I'm going to work my hardest to stay well and keep this going as long as I can. And so that
doing the
is,
things that you're now able to do that you've been thinking about.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then the other thing that I think people that are just starting the process to need to, don't ask don't ask loaded questions. Don't
What do you
ask
mean by that?
questions like, don't ask questions where
Yeah.
what if, or like, don't ask people on social media like, hey,
No,
this is what I'm going through. Does anybody
no.
else like, people are always looking to give their opinion or say something on any
Yeah.
kind of topic that they feel educated on, but nobody else out there is your doctors.
No.
So I think a lot of people could alleviate some stress and anxiety by one, and it's hard not to because I got on the internet and I looked at things,
Yeah, I
and
didn't.
but then I decided, you know what? I'm not going to be a statistic.
Yeah.
We're gonna roll with the punches. We're gonna
Yes,
just take it day to day. If tomorrow I get to wake up and put my feet on the ground, it's a good day.
it is a good
And
tech.
so, it's now that you can breathe, it's hard to, like, sometimes you get in the rat race again of
You
life
do.
and taking it for granted. Like, hey, I could wake up, I'm normal, boom. But
But
you
I
get
think,
a little bit of dose reality twice a day when you take those
yeah, taking
medications, and
medicine,
it's like,
you do your spirometry. I think
mm,
that's a good
yeah,
but I think you bring up a good point. I think it's okay to get to the point where you don't that's not the first thing you think about every day. We will
yeah,
always know that we had a lung transplant, and we will always know that somebody made a choice that saved our lives. But it's not the first thing I think about anymore, and I don't remember when that switch happened. And I can't say I take it for granted because I don't, but it isn't the major motivating factor in all of my decisions anymore. And I think that's a good thing because why do we have a transplant? We don't do it to sit on our couch and stay inside and
no,
not live a life.
yeah, we're
We
definitely not
do
living
it
in a
so
bubble.
that we do it so that we can have a life again and have a
Yeah,
good life again. And I think it's very honoring to your donor and their family for you to be as normal as possible, not be reckless, but just
yeah,
be normal, be happy, and live your life.
yeah, and I mean, you make it seem like it's just so easy, and for some people, it is. Some people, you know, go into this with a very dark mindset to start with
I
because,
know.
again, we're at the end stage
Yes.
of our diseases, which, what does that mean? It means, okay, we're kind of looking at death here. There's not really
Yeah.
much to be excited for, not much to look forward to. It's hard to focus on the positive, but when you do better. You do better through
Yes.
transplant, you do better pre-transplant. You're not wasting energy on things that you don't need to waste your energy on because you
Yeah.
really need to be bottling it up.
Well,
I
and every
mean,
day isn't hopeful. There are dark moments for everyone. It's just you can't let that become your outlook. And you're right. When you have a positive mindset and you feel like I can do this, it's really hard right now, but I
mhm,
trust my team and I can do this. It makes all the difference.
yeah. Like, I don't think about it at all anymore.
Easy to forget. How you forget that you had a transplant because you got 3 kids and 2 crazy dogs. It's really easy to get
Yeah,
wrapped up
my
in the
life
details of life.
life is just, it's so chaotic. It's so chaotic around here, and I always say, like, why did we do this? Why do we
Because
have
it's
so much going
awesome.
on? Then the next breath, I'll go, man, where does the time go?
Yeah.
You spend it running around chasing
Yes,
whatever,
but you can spend it running around.
and you're not bound to an oxygen tank, and you're not bound
You're
to
here.
an outlet for your concentrator. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I will never say that transplant's not worth it. I will never say
It's
that. Do
I
I think
agree.
some people have it harder than others?
Oh,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Absolutely. But not everybody takes care of themselves and thinks the same way and lives the same way. And,
Yeah,
you know, people just do things differently. I
they do.
mean, I remember hearing people like, first meal out of the hospital, they go to a buffet. Like, what are you doing? Why would you think that that's a good idea? How do I stay so healthy? I avoid situations where I feel like I could potentially get sick.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's
It's
not
easy.
always avoidable, but you mitigate the risks that you can. You don't take the ones that you know this is probably not a good idea. It's December. Do I want to get on a crowded airplane with people who have been all over everywhere?
Right.
Sometimes you
Do I
can't
want to
avoid it.
take a trip and risk getting sick on the way there and then being
Yeah.
sick on my trip, or getting sick on the way back and then having to taking care of your kids
Yeah.
or whatever you're doing back to work, and you're sick. So
Yeah.
it's just,
And you learn how to do those things and you learn how to do the things that you want to do that are really important, but you learn how to do them safely. So I don't think there's anything that I don't do that I really want to do. I don't think I've truly given up anything that I felt like that was a deal breaker for me.
yeah, and put it this way, I mean, I'm 12 plus out from, you know, my first one. Uh, whatever I'm now missing out on, I don't know what it is. So it's
I
not
don't remember.
really, Yeah, I'm not really missing out on anything
No.
because it's not I don't know.
Yeah. Don't let that I mean, I think the one thing I would say to anybody who's listening, if you're thinking about it and you're like, "Oh, but what about this? Oh, but what about this?" Don't let those things be the things that hold you back. Because
Yeah,
if they're
what
really
if those
important
things
to
don't
you,
happen?
yeah.
You know, my second transplant, if I could have been discharged on a Saturday, I would have been home in 5 days.
Yeah.
5. I mean, I was up
That's wild.
walking and eating the day I got out of the OR.
Wow. That's
It was
amazing.
like nothing could possibly go wrong.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it was easy. It was like, man, like why couldn't the first one been like that? But
Well,
anyways, well, I I am going to save my story for another time.
okay.
Because I don't want to
Sorry I
bore
took all the
everybody
time,
with
but
no, I love to hear everybody's story. Yes, I do have a very unique story, which I am excited to tell. But we will have to do that at a different time.
sounds good.
So thank you for so much for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if I got anything wrong, if I missed any details or I misspoke,
Oh
recollections
well,
may vary. It wasn't
oh well.
intentional.
It is what it is.
It
We're
is what
not
it is.
doctors. We're
Nope,
just
just people.
patients.